Yep.
Yeah, you ready to record? You got recording going? Okay, cool.
Let's go.
Okay, here we go. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our recorded now panel session for Aspire project for Transitions UK. And today the panel have met to discuss a film that was posted a week ago called Violent Crime: A Mother's Story. I'm Verity Slaughter-Penny. I am the virtual project and learning coordinator for Transitions UK, and I'll let the panel introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlie. I'm the hub coordinator for the Aspire project in Buckinghamshire.
Hi everyone, I am Kimberly Davis and I am the Aspire project hub coordinator for Enfield, Haringey, Brent and Barnet.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Lindsay. I've been working with the Aspire project now for around 10 months.
Fabulous, thank you very much, and it's great to have you here. And if anybody wants to join us on this panel and join the Zoom meeting, you are more than welcome to, as and when you like to, or if you've got a question to pose, you're more than welcome to try and put it in chat and not even join us on the video. That's absolutely fine as well. So we're going to start by asking the fairly obvious question about the film, which is, how did it make you feel?
So I'd mentioned before, for those who'd seen it when we were live streaming, but I'll say it again. Yeah, I think it's extremely sad, but I think it's sad for everyone involved. I think that obviously from the mother's perspective, it's her child. She's obviously panicked. She doesn't know what's going on. And then for the child involved, he's a child and no one wants to have to experience that. And also for the perpetrator, what would possess you to do that? I think there's so many different angles to look at it. I don't think it's just enough to say, oh, that's a really bad person. What made you wake up and think that's what you want to do? Because I think that's the question that needs to be answered before anything else, in my personal opinion. But yeah, I think entirely it's just horrid, isn't it? Like, it's not what should have happened. And
Yeah.
Everyone's heavily affected.
Yep, no, most definitely. Yeah, like I said before, what sort of hit me was not just the action itself and the physical scars it left, but more sort of the ongoing effects of where the consequence of what happened. So the perpetrator, if they get convicted, not only if they get convicted, but of course, as they grow into themselves, we like to think and hopefully their mindset will change, and it was a regret they will have to live with their whole entire life. And of course, people can change, which is great. But it's always important to think about the decisions from day one before you make them, and also for the victims as well, not just the physical scars and pain for them, but also the ongoing effect of loss of job, loss of confidence, mental health state, which obviously is huge now. So yeah, that's what I took from it, just as much as the actual act itself.
Yeah, I mean, I echo all of that, and I think also thinking about the mental health of everybody involved of that situation. There's going to be trauma for everyone, whatever that situation was, because it was quite horrific. And I also just wanted to mention that that sense of panic when you don't know where someone is or you're worried about someone, and that's in lots of situations, and your mind goes at 10 million miles an hour. And yeah, just that panic of not knowing where that person is, I think is awful for everyone involved. And thanks for joining us, Kate.
Absolutely, and that panic was sort of enhanced in the story, and I felt it grew and grew and grew, because here was a young person who normally would be readily in touch with his mother, and made sure that he was in touch with his mother, because he knew that she had her own anxieties. So for her to lose that touch at that time in the morning was must have been quite traumatic and shocking, and for that to then go on for hours and hours must have felt like a lifetime, really, mustn't it? So that must have been really hard for her, and obviously them not being able to get in touch must have been pretty hard as well. So they would normally reassure and they couldn't. So welcome, Kate. You're on mute, by the way.
Hiya, how are you doing?
Hi, welcome.
Okay.
Kim, did you have some questions you wanted to pose about the film that you said?
Yeah, so Charlie, let me see if I can quickly grab them, because I did send them to Charlie earlier on. So I said, Do you think incidents like this one in particular causes PTSD for both victim and perpetrator? And yeah, that's something I stretch out to all of you.
Causes PTSD for the perpetrators too?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a
That's
very interesting question.
Interesting, isn't it? I think that's what I meant also about mental health effects on the victim and the perpetrator, potentially.
Yeah.
Why, like what you said, Chris, why is that person doing that in the first place? Like, what led them into that situation? What have they been through to get to that situation?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Kim, I think possibly immediately it wouldn't, because that's the mindset and the stage of their life that they're in. But in months or years even to come, it will be something that will potentially repeat itself and come to spear its head, as they say, later on down the line. And how they respond to that may be in a positive light. But yeah, I do think it can definitely have a negative effect on the person who sort of takes the action, and also, of course, the victims.
Yeah,
I think yes, definitely it had that impact on the victim, because as it said in the story, he later lost his job because of the mental health impact on it, and already suffered from depression before it happened. So you've got that double impact on it. But also, two of the perpetrators were very young. They were only 14. So I would echo what Chris is saying, that I think as they age and develop and their mindset grows, it's possibly going to come back to haunt them at a later date. Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think so, Kim. I think there would be effects. Maybe not PTSD, but definitely effects on mental health. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the other questions was about what support do we think the victim would need? And I suppose we could widen that question to victims would need in the future.
I think for the mum, as the mother already suffered from anxiety, that's obviously going to be heightened. So there's definitely going to have to be some type of like mental support for both mother and child, because he also was someone that suffered from depression. So now everything's gone from maybe being level 5 to level 10. And that's going to have catastrophic effects for their family, because simple things that maybe like him going to the shop, which he would have done normally 10, 15 minutes, come back home. If he's ever 5 minutes late, your brain goes into that same mode where you was on that day. So the effects a lot.
No, most definitely, Kim. I think it's always good to sort of draw on personal experiences. And luckily myself, I never went for anything that, but I had friends that I know, for example, and I know we were speaking about errors earlier, but I went to school in Hertfordshire, and they didn't used to like coming down to North London, and they just started gaining the confidence to do so. And unfortunately, one time they came down, they actually did get robbed. And after that, they refused to, sort of step foot in the place again. And obviously they had that, it affected them, because they weren't willing to sort of to travel down to different parts of, I mean, for me, it's frustrating that unfortunately you can get such a perception of a place just from one bad experience.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Potentially for life as well.
Yeah, for life. No, definitely. I think so.
That's true, because growing up, if I think about it, that all the areas when I was young, that I thought, oh yeah, it's really bad, you don't really want to go there, I still think that now.
Yeah.
And even though they have like changed somewhat, they may not be perfect because nowhere is, but they have changed. I still look at them, yeah, definitely. I still look at them through that looking glass of being that same area. So yeah, it's a bummer. Yeah.
I think what's important for sort of young people to know and recognise is, although be vigilant and be sensible, I don't think anyone should have to sort of walk around fearful, because like Kim said earlier as well, it is, there's a lot of negative on social media, and I just think it's funny. I was having a conversation with my partner the other day, and we run a business together as well, and we have to deal with trying to think of the right word without using bad language. A lot of individuals that complain, So she's sort of given up on humans. She's like, oh, I prefer dogs to humans now. Whereas, you know, being part of transitions for myself, I see that there are great people out there that want to give back and do want to help.
Definitely.
So it's just the lens you use and the perspective of your space and how you want to perceive the world.
Perhaps that opens up another question, actually. You're saying about being fearful of walking places and being places. What's interesting in this case is that these people were not walking on their own. They were together as a pair. And that they did that in order to be protected of one another, one assumes, because it was late at night, you know, whatever. And then yet this still happened. So I think impact wise, you know, I don't know, is that going to be a worse impact because you thought you were protected by having your friend there? Is it going to lessen the impact, or is it going to make that effect, that ripple effect, worse, do you think?
But if you ask a lot of the young people nowadays, especially those who walk around protecting themselves, whether it be with knives or God knows what, the reason they do that is because the mindset is, if I don't stay protected, I can't guarantee my safety. So the problem with that, it's all a roll-on effect. So one thing knocks onto something else, because depending on this young person's family and the people that he has to support him, it wouldn't shock nor surprise me if he then said, well, moving forward, I'm not leaving my house without protecting myself, because I'll be damned if I'm stuck in that position again. And that's why we have the level of knife crime and things like that we have now. And the ages are getting younger, because it's younger people, like they're starting from 10, 11 already, and they're getting into that mindset. And from there, they're just building and building and building and building and building. And it gets out of hand. So it's scary.
Let's ask that question then. So if one of these young boys have been armed with a knife, do we think that rather than the impact of that film having been long-term mental health issues and the injuries they had eventually healing, do we think we'd be talking about a film that ended up in a death?
More than likely.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I'm on the fence about this, because I agree with what you're saying, Kim. Yeah, I do agree, but I also believe that some people, and again, I'm not trying to put people in boxes, but people are built, and obviously it's because of their environment and, you know, their upbringing, but people are built in a certain way. And what I mean by that is those young men who were victimized. Yeah, I get your question, Verity, is like, if they had a knife, so are you trying to say, would they have called it out and then perhaps it actually would have got taken from them? And
would it have been turned against them?
Yeah, because they're not, it's not in their nature to actually use the knife. So there's carrying a knife and then there's using a knife.
Yeah.
And it could have gone the other way. Sorry, it could have gone the other way as well. If it was someone that was prepared, they carry a knife for protection and willing to use it, well, then
that's the most dangerous, right?
That's the most dangerous. Yeah, exactly.
And maybe that's one of the messages that we can start to get out there today by having this conversation is, had one of those people been carrying it, I mean, it was bad enough that the perpetrators were carrying axes. I mean, that was pretty bad. And that those axes were used in well, certainly threatened to be used when they threatened to cut off one of the young victims' hands with the axe. That it could have been a whole lot worse with a knife. I think that's just one of the messages we want to get out.
The thing is, to be 14 and have an axe on you in itself, before we go anywhere else, how are you 14 and you have an axe?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Why are you 14 and out at that time of night? At 14, where's your parents? Like, I think there's many, many, many things before even what they carried out. Because I think about the young people that I know, like even for my family, and 14 with an axe is almost like, what? Like,
yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. Where have you even got that from? 14 with a kitchen knife, just as bad, but you got it from the kitchen.
Yeah, but like you said, they were out at that time as well.
Yeah.
I had a curfew at 8 p.m. I was home at 14.
Exactly.
So I was out on my bike, home.
Exactly so. So it's, to me, like, I would strongly want to know, like, I think probably even if I was the mother in the situation, I'd really want to have a conversation with that perpetrator's mother and find out, how has your child got to this? Because I think that's a more valuable conversation. If there is one, that said too.
Yeah.
Or the legal guardian, so to speak, then.
2 out of the 3 were 14 too, which is quite an
Wow.
amazing, really, isn't it? And were they being led? You know, was the older perpetrator
Mhm.
a leader in this? You know, what was happening? We don't really know. I think maybe this is the point at which I say what I have to say, so that you can ask more detailed questions. I am the mother in the story.
Right.
Okay. So it is my story. That is my son and his best friend from Manchester, and they'd gone for a night out. So I'm able to ask you, allow you to ask more detailed questions if you like. If you want to know more, you can certainly ask me. And part of the reason I made the film is because I'm here to change lives. And this is what we're about for Aspire. And I want you to show the Aspire youngsters that even though that happened to me and my son and his friend, I'm here.
Yeah.
Working for transitions, working to better their outcomes. And that's really important, I think, for them.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
So
makes it a whole lot more relatable.
Definitely.
So now you can ask me any questions you want, and I can try and fill in as best I can on exactly what happened and the questions I've got, because my initial reaction straight after this was, put me in a room with the little for 5 minutes and I'll show them what aggressive can be. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not a naturally aggressive person, having been a teacher all my life. My instinct is to protect youth.
It's your son.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, but it was my son. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so you have that torn instinct, this real rending apart of, this is my philosophy in life, is every child deserves a chance. And my ethic is every child deserves a chance. And as a head teacher for 9 years, I never excluded a single child, no matter how tough it got. So I was really ripped apart at the end of this as to where I lay.
Yeah, of course.
And that was an interesting scenario for me.
If you don't mind me asking, that everyone's in there. If you don't mind me asking, Verity, what were the consequences for the young guys that had carried it out?
Okay, so one is still to be charged
Right.
later in April. Okay, but 2 out of the 3, the Crown Prosecution Service agreed to charge 2 out of the 3 perpetrators. The third one, they couldn't get enough DNA evidence to link him directly to the scene. Okay, but 2 out of the 3 were charged. Sadly, one of them only got a curfew.
Well, that's the problem there, I think.
A limited curfew. The other one we're still waiting to see. Interesting, Kim, to listen to you saying about being scared of walking around your own home. Because that's one of the things that happened, because the perpetrators had all my son's details.
Yeah.
Right.
They had his wallet, they had his phone, they had his social network, they had everything in their pocket. And as they walked away, they said, if you do anything about this, we'll be round and we'll have you.
Yeah.
To your address. So he had to move out of his home for 2 weeks to his dad's house, which is up in another village, because he couldn't even face being in his own flat. So you've got this situation where there's a big delay between the event and an arrest, an effective arrest. There's a massive delay. In fact, in this scenario, it's like 18 months.
Wow.
Where we had to live with that going on and him feeling unsafe in his own home.
But this is what I mean about, so there's a level of anger that comes from that, because, okay, so 2 have been charged, 1's got curfew. Now, please explain to me how that teaches them moving forward that what they done was wrong. Because in my eyes, what is curfew going to do?
Yeah.
14 with an axe. Like it just doesn't correlate to me. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have. The repercussions for these actions are not hard enough.
No,
they're not.
Agreed. I'm probably going off on a little bit of a tangent here. But like yourself, Very, as well, I'm a very forgiving person, but I'd also agree that I know they don't do it in this country. But that death penalty I don't agree with, for one.
Yeah.
And secondly, when you commit such a crime, right, whether it's that or it's murder, or there's a few, I won't touch on it, but there's a few crimes that I have actually, like, once you've committed it, that's it. But things like that, at what point, say, for example, say you get a life sentence for that, at what point can you turn around and go, well, this young man or young lady has changed himself, or they have grown up now and they are remorseful for what they've done? I just find the whole again, I don't know too much about the system, but I just find it, does it really reform just putting someone in jail? Like,
but I don't think the solution is to put them in jail. I think the problem is that there are this is the problem. There's no in between. There's nothing between the crime and the jail.
Right.
Which essentially is what our mentors, you could say, are somewhat in the in between. So if we're dealing with someone who's offended, we are the people that step in and essentially try to help reform them and make and give them the tools to make better decisions.
Yeah.
But we're just one organization. And if based on what the media says, we're a country at a loss when it comes to our young people and the crimes that they're committing. But if all we're doing is saying, okay, someone breaks, so let's just say a 14-year-old, because that's obviously in this scenario, a 14-year-old, okay, you're not necessarily going to send a 14-year-old to jail, might send them to young offenders depending on what the age and all that stuff is. But the reality of it is, what is a curfew going to do? I have friends who were on curfew when I was growing up, and they used to use a hairdryer and take off the tag. It done nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that is not me telling anyone that works. I don't believe it does.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Just saying. And that was many years ago, but it's the truth. That it's not enough. So if we're looking at someone that's committed that crime, okay, you've given them curfew, but what else? Is there some type of education that they have to complete? Is there some type of scheme that they have to be a part of? Do they have to work within their community to develop it? Like, let's put them in, they want to be an adult and make adult decisions. Let's treat you like an adult then. Because clearly you don't want to be a child at that point in time. I think it's just too easy, in my opinion, if I'm honest.
And I suppose that's also why we all do what we do. That's why Transitions is there. And I know we're only one organisation, but I suppose, like what Verity said, if you can make that difference to one person or two people, then that will make it, that will have a knock-on effect. I was just going to ask another question. I was just going to bring it back a little bit, because obviously talking about the justice system is probably another discussion that none of us can solve.
No.
I was just going to ask, and you don't obviously have to answer this, Verity, because obviously it's personal, but just about how your lad is now, and like what maybe, how do they feel about it now, like looking back?
Okay, so
what that journey was, because obviously we're all thinking anger, right? There's going to be a certain amount of anger.
Not a naturally angry person. He's very much like me in personality terms. He's just not naturally angry at all. He's more likely to be upset or sad by it. So you asked about support, didn't you? Somebody asked about support earlier. So he did have an element of victim support. They put him through for EMDR therapy, and he did have that, although he had to have it virtually because obviously we went into lockdown. So he did have it, but he had it virtually. So he did have all the therapy. He is on medication still, and probably will be for a long time. And he had to resign from his job, which is very sad because he is a learning support mentor at a college. So that's
ironic.
I know,
very
right?
ironic. They could have been his students, Chris. You know, they weren't, but they could have been. So that's very sad because that again, a group of young people have lost a very valuable person. So he's going away from that business now, but not because he can't do the job. He can do the job, but because a lot of the students he has also suffer from mental health issues, and his own mental health was getting in the way. So he resigned because he couldn't cope with it anymore, which is absolutely fine. And he's now looking to go back into his other work, which is he's a linguist, so he's going to go back into translation services.
Okay.
But so he has options, which is fine. Yeah, he's looking to move out of Bedford.
Wow.
That bad. I mean, Did you know where? Anywhere nice? Move to the seaside.
Kent. Is he looking at Kent?
Kent.
The problem is, and the sad part of it is that unfortunately, if he moves, it may give him a certain peace of mind because he's not within the area. but you can't guarantee that won't happen anywhere. And the real thing is that he's going to have to probably go through a lot of counseling and a lot of therapy to be able to understand that there's always a possibility, and there's a possibility for anyone. And by relocating doesn't necessarily take away from that happening, but it's trying to deal with the fear of that.
Yeah.
Is the main thing. But how does he do that?
It won't. What I'll say on that, I do agree. I totally agree with Kim. But what it may do is remove triggers to that anxiety.
Yeah, that's true.
Location, just being in certain locations. Even I know myself, like this, certain places not remind me of certain things, certain smells.
Yeah,
brain's crazy how it's sort of triggered by senses. But no, I agree what you're saying as well. It can happen anywhere to any of us at any time. I'm sort of contradicting myself now because earlier I was saying don't be fearful, but you just have to live life and just
literally. I agree.
It's hard, isn't it? Because you want to say to everyone, go out, live your life, be your best self, right? That's what we promote for all young people. But obviously there is a side of us that is also really cautious, and it is about looking after yourself. And like we said about what happens if they were carrying a knife. So for your lad, they don't carry knives. So that was their decision, however many years ago, not to carry a knife. And so it is about positive life choices, and it's about positive decisions. And we all know that it's never always that easy. We know
No. Everyone makes bad decisions, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not perfect.
No. And I think as well, it is a much different time. Like there is a lot of influences at the moment that I think are playing a big part in regards to some of the decisions, not all, but some of the decisions that young people are making and the poor choices. And I think we need more people to almost step into the roles like what we're doing within their community, because it's about building a village and creating foundation, and your community is your home. So it's not about looking at a child and saying, oh, well, he's not my family or he's not my son. Like, they're all of our kids. It's all of our responsibility to try and support them to make better decisions. And we need that right now, I think.
Yeah. This is, again, go on, Verity. Yours more relevant.
It's all right. So I would, now I look back at it, I would have liked the opportunity to sit down with those young persons in a room and say, what the hell were you thinking? What went through your mind 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute before you decided to carry that out? What on earth went through your mind? What went through your mind in the detail of what you did? In that, I mean, it ultimately was classed as a kidnapping as well, because they forced him to go to the cash point for money and things like that. What was going through your mind? That's what I'd like to ask them.
Verity, do you know if it was the people who carried out the crime? Do you know if it was their first offence?
No, I don't. I don't know that much detail.
Yeah, because like you said, like you like to sit them down. It's like, but you wonder if it was something they'd repeatedly done, or was it just was it just a random night? You just don't.
There were some odd things that happened, and I'll tell you those odd things to see if this helps you. It won't help you thinking, because it doesn't help me thinking. I can't get my head around it. One of the odd things one of them said was, if this was a different situation, we could all be friends.
Said that to him. Sorry.
The perpetrator said that to my son and his
right.
If this
in
was
what
a
context?
Situation, we could all be mates. And
was this at the scene?
What's the context of that, though? I don't understand. Like what?
They'd already broken my son's wrist.
Oh, they've already. Okay.
And set about his friend. The reason they set about his friend in a much worse way than they set about my son was because his friend went, just a minute, this ain't right. And then they said, in another situation, we could be mates. And both boys went, what are you talking about? In no, And the other thing they said to them, which was interesting, there's three things. There's two things that were said. That was one. Another one was, we're not doing this because you're gay,
Right.
Now that was interesting.
How did they know your son was gay?
I don't know how they knew they were gay. They are gay.
Yeah.
But they're not a partnership. They're not a partnership. They're just friends. So there would have been nothing to show that.
And you're
just
under
a
the guess your
presumption,
son,
right?
Pardon, Charlotte?
It was just an assumption.
Just a presumption,
Yeah,
right?
they've
It's just a
just presumed.
presumption.
Or, but I'm guessing your son has like identified them, like he's seen them. So it's not someone who like you knew, or
no,
just strangers. Okay.
no, just strangers. Yeah, yeah.
Peculiar.
So that was a very peculiar thing to say. But also at one point, so one of the acts they did was they having kicked Dean in one of the boys unconscious. One of them shoved soil down his throat.
Soil, like mud.
Soil. Yeah. Now, when the others took my son away to the cash point, one of the perpetrators, I think, began to panic because he started to pull the soil out of his throat, saying, "Oh, for God's sake,
This is enough."
felt,
yeah.
Yeah, you can kill
my
him.
perspective was you felt you didn't want to kill him.
Yeah.
So maybe there is an iota of hope in that person thought we've gone too far here.
Do you know if they're intoxicated? Does any of it ever come out or anything?
They thought that one of the three was high
On
something extremely strong, because they said eyes like
Right.
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think we're all going to be thinking about this for a while. I think we'll all have a lot of questions for probably a long time to come, but I didn't know if anyone else had any more formal questions that they'd like to bring to the group. I know we've had some real technical problems, so I apologise about that, but I think we've had a really great discussion, and that this will be uploaded onto YouTube at a later date. But is there anything else anyone would like to bring to the discussion?
I don't have any more questions, but I'd like to say to Verity, thank you. Because I think that a lot of the time we don't necessarily get to hear the parents' perspective. Out of maybe if they're doing like a BBC interview or something, you don't actually get to speak directly to like the victim's mother, essentially, or father or carer. And I feel like it takes guts to have that conversation. And big respect to you, man, Verity. Like, definitely. And I really, really hope that he finds, a way of coping, because it's happened and you can't change that. But life has to move on. And I really hope that he finds a way to maneuver through life, being able to enjoy it as best as he can.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally have hope for, is this going to sound terrible? I have hope that the perpetrators change too.
Yeah.
Of course.
I have that hope that they will be able to reform and learn and change. So I hold on to,
Thank you very much.
Any questions, anybody? Is that it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think say thank you for sharing, and thanks Chris for joining as well. And I know Julie's just joined as well at the end. But yeah, thank you to everyone who tried to tune in live earlier. Gremlins and the system.
Apologies for the gremlins. Apologies to the gremlins, everybody. And we hope that if you watch this video back, there are some learning points there, and you're able to make better informed decisions moving forward.
Yeah.
And also, I think as well, just to mention, obviously transitions is growing, and we do need more people like Chris and those who have joined us to get on board, because these young people need us, essentially. So if you know that you've got the heart to be able to want to see a young person have the future that they deserve, and feel that you have the tools that can best support them, get involved.
Yeah.
Reach out to us. I'm sure we can put like our email addresses under the video. Just reach out. There may be something that you could do that could potentially change someone's life.
Yeah,
absolutely right.
And also, there's higher likely that young people have changed. This is what we're working for. Lots of young people have been through things, come out the other side, and now they want to give back. And that's also the stories we want to hear. But so yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
It was lovely seeing you all.
And
thank you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in if you are. Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Bye.
Bye.